I'm Owen Evans. I'm a product engineer on the StoryMaps team, and I'm here with Cooper Thomas, also on the StoryMaps team. Actually, you want to introduce yourself too?
Sure. My name is Cooper Thomas, and I'm also on the StoryMaps team. I'm a product designer.
We're going to talk to you today about something really fun and something we're really excited about, which is what's coming for StoryMaps in 2019. So we'll start off with just a little background why we're doing what we're doing this year. We're going to show you a little sneak peek video. I'll talk a little bit about the features of the new builder that we're coming out with this year. And then Coop's going to go through and demo what we've got so far in our alpha. And then we'll talk a little bit about our plans for the future, and then we're happy to take some questions at the end. So we're really happy with the success of StoryMaps. They're popular today, and the popularity is growing. We've got over 800,000 StoryMaps hosted on ArcGIS Online. We just passed that big milestone last week. So that's something that we're really excited about. And of course, there's lots of other StoryMaps living on enterprise servers out there that we have no idea about because we don't have any visibility into those. In a typical weekday, there's between 1,500 or sometimes over 2,000 stories made on a typical weekday. Our record is over 2,700 stories in a single day. Yesterday I just checked, we had over 1,900 stories created. So lots of activity going on with StoryMaps every day. And people aren't just making them, people are also viewing these, and they're getting a lot of views. We've got usually over 2 million hits every week on StoryMaps that are hosted online. So we are rebuilding StoryMaps this year. So why are we doing that? Well, we've had 7 years of feedback and knowledge and experience with people using our tools and telling stories with maps ourselves. And we want to leverage all that experience to build something great and to improve on what we've got. We also want to address some of the challenges that have cropped up with the templates that we've got today over time, right? These have been out for a while, and sometimes they've been used in patterns that we didn't expect, and we want to kind of make something new that's going to help address some of those challenges that have come up. And of course, we want to use this opportunity to innovate on the design and the technology that we're using to deliver StoryMaps. So to start out, we've got a nice little teaser video that we recorded a couple of weeks ago by our colleague Mark Harrower. So we're going to play that for you so you can get a taste of what's coming.
Should just be able to hit space.
Space.
We have almost 750,000 story maps that have been authored in the last 7 years, and that thrills us. We're so excited by the success of story maps. They've become a really natural way for a lot of people to find their voice and to bring their content together, whether it's their maps, their narratives, the photographs, to weave these things together. And I'm really pleased to announce that we've made major changes to story maps for 2019, and I'm really excited to be able to show this today. The new builder allows you to mix and match different blocks together to tell your story the way you want to tell it. Previously, you've had to choose one of 8 templates. We had templates like Journal and Cascade, and they've been enormously popular. But what we wanted to do was build one place where you could bring the best of all of those templates together and mix and match and move blocks around and really find the right way to tell your story. Whether it's mostly maps, mostly photographs with a lot of narrative, you can find the right home for that content in the new builder. One of the things that we've heard from folks is they need simple maps. They need to be able to add simple reference maps, locator maps, things that show like a study area or a couple push pins that show where potential site locations are. And you want to be able to click on those push pins and just get a couple basic facts. So what we've built is something called Express Maps, which allow you to author simple maps directly in the builder without having to leave. And we've really streamlined the workflow. If you've made a story, you know one of the most time-consuming things is having to visually harmonize all the elements because you're making things in different places. So you have to remember what fonts you use, what colors you use, what the background color is, how much line spacing, all those little details really take a lot of time to get right. With OneClick Themes, we take care of this for you. With OneClick Themes, you can change the tone of your story. Finding the right tone to tell your story, the right visual tone, is a really important part of a narrative. And OneClick Themes will continue to evolve in the future. One of the things we've heard is that you often need to share your story before you can publish it. You need to show it to your boss. You need to show it to your colleagues. You want their input. I'm really pleased to announce that we've introduced draft mode. And what draft mode allows you to do is to share a story before it's public to get feedback. Even better, we've introduced, once the story is published, the ability to make further edits and decide when you want those edits to go live. So if you want to make edits on a Tuesday but republish the story on a Friday, you can do that now. Mobile first is everything these days. What we know is that most of us consume digital content through our phones. Therefore, as designers, we have to have that in mind. And so with a mobile first approach, we've made sure to do all of the hard work, all the heavy lifting behind the scenes, so that you don't have to optimize your photographs and your web maps and all of these other things that are going to be delivered to that device. We do this automatically behind the scenes so that you don't have to worry about it. What it means is that regardless of where your audience is coming from and how they're reaching you, their experience is going to be amazing.
All right, so is my mic still on? Do you guys hear me okay? No. How about now? There we go. So let's unpack a little bit of what was in that video and talk a little bit more about that in detail. So one of the big things about the next generation story maps is that instead of having several different builders for different story types or storytelling patterns, we're going to have a single builder where you can build any type of story that we enable you to create. So you'll be able to add blocks in different types of layouts so that you'll be able to create any type of story you want. Whether you want something that's a scrolling story, whether you want something that has sections, you'll be able to create that in that single environment. So you'll have a single UI to do all of this. And from our side, it's nice because we'll have one environment in which to work and to fix bugs and to make improvements and that sort of thing. The other thing we mentioned in there was some new mapping features. So of course, StoryMaps is powered by ArcGIS. So all the power and the content of ArcGIS comes along with StoryMaps. So you'll be able to add your web maps and your web scenes. But we've also added this new type of mapping called Express Maps. And Express Maps are really useful for those types of maps that are useful in stories that are little reference maps or little place or location map. Instead of starting with data and making a map like you do often for a web map or a web scene, you just start with some ideas in your head. You can very easily sketch those on the map and get that idea out of your head onto the map. You can also add some information to those points or those features that you add, and also some images as you saw in the video. Even though we're going to have 3 different types of geographic content that you can add to story maps, we'll have a single environment that we call our map designer where you can work with all of that content. So whether you're creating an express map from scratch or whether you're just bringing in a web map and changing the extent or toggling the visible layers, all of that's done within a single experience. So it's not like you have to learn lots of different tools to work with all these types of content. And then some things we're introducing for the first time in story map templates. When you're working with web maps, we're now bringing in your bookmarks so you can leverage those. So if you've made bookmarks or added bookmarks to your web maps, you'll be able to use those. And we're also letting you modify the layer names in the story map itself. This won't get saved back to the web map, but sometimes you've got a legend, maybe it's a little bit messy or you haven't quite updated your layer names. You can just change those really quickly inside the story map builder now, and those will be reflected inside your story only. Another feature that Mark mentioned in the video are OneClick Themes. So this is a great way to instantly change the tone of your entire story. And we'll look at all of the content that you've got in that story, like the little buttons or the little separators, and we'll pull those colors through and change them for you very easily. And we'll also theme those express maps as well. So you can see here in the screenshot, in the top we've got a dark theme, and you can see the express map has a dark base map. In the light theme, we've switched that over to the light base map. So all those visual elements will pull through your entire story, even with those express maps that you create. So I'm going to turn it over to Coop, and he's actually going to dive into what we've got released today for our alpha and show you what we've got.
Thank you, Owen. Let me get over to my browser window here. There we go.
Slide that over if you want.
Oh, I got to get out of... So I'm starting here on the My Stories page. If you've created a story map in the past, this should be somewhat familiar to you. It's basically a space for you to view and edit and administer all of the stories in your personal account. You can see them all here, but I'm going to go ahead and create a new story. It's going to launch the builder. If you've created a cascade before, this interface should also be a little bit similar to you, but there are a couple key differences that you might notice. First of all, we've done away with the side panel and moved most of those options directly into the header here, and that ensures that your content is always kind of front and center. And the builder itself gives you a really good preview of what your story is going to look like once it's published. You might also notice that there's no longer a save button anywhere, and that's because we've implemented autosave. So your stories are automatically going to be saved as you make changes, ensuring that you don't need to remember to press that button to commit those changes. I'm going to go ahead and add a title here. And I'm cheating a little bit because I have a text page here with some text I'm just going to paste in. Content blocks are added the same way they are in Cascade. There's a little plus icon here to the left of the content section. And if I click on that, I get a list of different content types I can add. Right now, these are mostly simple blocks, text, photos, videos, and maps. But as we continue to build out the platform, you'll see additional blocks here, like those map tour style blocks or those map series style blocks. Those will all appear right here in this block palette. And you'll be able to add them to your story directly without having to, as Owen said, go into a different app builder and create a story there and then embed it in this story. It should be a very tight integrated experience. So I'm just going to paste some text in here. Again, we have a rich text editor, so I can apply some styling changes. I can bold text, italicize, add hyperlinks, and so forth. We also have some built-in text styles like headings. This is a heading, subheadings, and so forth, quote styles. Everything you'd expect from sort of a rich text-focused publishing platform. I'm going to go ahead and add an image here. And I can just browse to the image on my desktop. Let's see, let's grab one of these. And one thing I want to mention here is that we're leveraging server-side optimization to ensure that your images always look really sharp and crisp, regardless of what device you're loading them on. So if you're reading a story on a mobile phone, we're automatically going to fetch an image that's the right size for that device. We're not going to try and load like a 2 megabyte high-resolution image. Conversely, if you're looking at a story on a very large device, we're going to try and fetch the biggest possible size that we can while still ensuring some measure of performance. So here I've just added an image. I can quickly add a caption as well. A view of the... Continuing on, maybe I'll add a little bit more text here. And what's a story map without a map? Let's add a map. As Owen mentioned, there's just a single map authoring or editing interface called the Map Designer. This is where you're going to configure both your existing web maps, web scenes, but also where you'll create new Express maps. So if I wanted to, I could just select a web map from my ArcGIS Online account, and it's automatically going to bring it in here. Just like in Cascade or Map Journal, I can choose which layers are visible at any given point. I can set the default extent. I have some additional options like turning the legend on or off, and I can just place that directly in my story. But I'm going to cancel here, and I'm going to show you what it looks like to actually author one of these new Express maps. So instead of choosing an existing map, I'm going to select Create an Express Map, and that's going to open this Express Map editing right in that Map Designer. This particular story is about a road trip I took in Kyrgyzstan a couple years ago, so I'm just going to search here for some points of interest. It's automatically going to zoom in here, and I can very quickly use these drawing tools to add points and lines and areas and even text annotations, which is really useful, again, for these locator maps or reference maps that don't require any rich data visualization or complex renderers, but that really just helps sort of orient your readers, tell them a little bit about maybe the geographic context of the story. Again, because this story is about a road trip, I'm going to add the beginning and end locations here. It's going to automatically zoom in here. This is a tiny little town in a tiny little country, so there aren't too many roads or anything. I can go ahead and add annotations or titles and descriptions to these pop-ups. Bishkek is the... And one thing we're really excited about is that now you can actually access these little pop-ups just on mouse over. You don't need to click to actually drill in to get that additional context. So now that I've added a couple points of interest, I think I'm going to trace my general route. To do that, I can use this line tool. And I can really quickly just drop vertices And I'm just doing kind of a roughshod job here. But this is a really effective and efficient way of tracing these paths. So maybe let's just do like that. And again, I can add a title and description to this feature. And maybe if I don't want the readers to have to actually mouse over on these points to see where they are, I can add a text annotation. So I can quickly add that text annotation. And then one thing that's really cool is that I can actually add these leader lines that connect the annotation to the actual feature. I'll add another one down here. Oops. And I can just really quickly drag and drop this around, add a leader line. And these leader lines are dynamic, so depending on where I place that actual annotation, it'll update. Let's just do something like that. Now, when I'm happy with my map, I can just click save, and it's going to automatically edit or place it directly in the story at that set extent or zoom level. We're also introducing a new layout option. Previously in Cascade, you just had small, medium, large, and these sort of full bleed immersive sections. But now we're actually introducing this additional float size, which just sort of floats the map off, or the map or the image or the video off to the side of the content panel, which is, again, really effective for these simple locators that maybe don't need a lot of visual prominence, but that are really important for sort of setting the tone or context of your story. Another really exciting feature that we're introducing is this concept of OneClick Themes, which Owen already talked about a little bit. Basic idea is that we're preparing a number of sort of pre-configured, pre-designed themes, each of which evoke maybe different emotional responses or that have different kind of tones to them. And with just a simple click, you can totally transform the look and feel of your story. And these themes apply to express maps as well. So you can see that the base map has changed, the feature colors have changed, the annotation has changed. Throughout the entire story, all elements are being updated and sort of respec to match this theme. Themes aren't going to affect web maps or web scenes just because those are sort of authored in a different environment, and we don't want to impose any sort of stylistic restrictions on the content that you maybe have created for a different purpose. But we do recognize also that folks require a certain amount of configuration of these themes, and so we are going to expose some additional options to tweak things like these primary feature colors or map colors, or possibly even allowing authors to choose between different font families for the different headings or body text and so forth. The last feature that I want to mention right now is these different publishing states. So right now you can see that my story is in draft mode, and if I hover over this little draft indicator here, it tells me that it's only visible to me. So draft mode is really just analogous to an unshared or private item in ArcGIS Online. Only I can view it when I log in, or administrators in my organization. So I'm going to go ahead and publish my story. And in this current pre-release build, we're only sharing publicly, but you will be able to publish just your organization or publicly, and then sort of change these settings as you see fit. But what's really cool now is that now that my story has been published, I can continue to make changes. This is a new paragraph. And the application is going to save those changes using that autosave, but it's not actually going to push those changes out to the live version. So I can maybe publish a story, continue to make some edits to it after it's been published, and then only deploy those changes or commit those changes to the published version when I'm ready. And this is something that a lot of folks have asked for sort of dynamic reports that maybe need to be updated over the course of a year. This is great because once you publish your story, it means that you're no longer sort of testing in a live environment whenever you need to make additional changes. So this is something that we're really excited about. And I think that's all I wanted to cover in this really quick sort of lightning demo here. Again, this is a pre-release version of the application. It's currently in sort of a closed alpha state, and I think Owen will talk a little bit more about the timeline and what the next steps are in getting this out to the public. So I'm going to jump back over to the presentation here and turn it back over to Owen.
Sure, thanks, Coop. So as Cooper said, we're in a private alpha right now. So we have about 100 people that we invited in, like our Storytelling with Maps contest winners and a couple of other key partners that we invited to the alpha who are testing right now. What our release plan looks like is this. So right now, like I said, we're in alpha. That was released in January. We just had another alpha update early this week where we added some additional features. So the alpha contains the ability to create these vertical scrolling stories, sort of similar to Cascade. You can add obviously text, images, and videos. You can add and configure web maps, create those express maps. We've got 2 themes like Cooper showed there and 1 simple cover option. We've got the beginnings of that draft publish workflow, and we also have built in some accessibility from the beginning as well, because we know that that's something that's very important to our customers. We added a lot of accessibility features into the classic apps, and we're building those in from the beginning in the next generation. And then in April, we're going to move to a fully public beta. So anyone will be able to use the builder to create stories with their own accounts. So that'll be exciting. We're going to add the ability to add web scenes to your stories. We're going to be adding an immersive block, which will be similar to the immersive sections in Cascade, or maybe even more like a journal type section. We're going to add the ability to embed content into your story. So like you can add a web page or an app or something else that's on the web. Also adding more express mapping tools, some additional drawing tools there. We're going to add a new cover option, which will be sort of like a side-by-side cover. You'll be able to put some media on the cover, whereas right now we just have sort of that blog-style text at the top. You'll be able to have a different style cover, and we'll be adding more covers in the future as well. We're going to be adding that theme customization that Coop mentioned, where you'll be able to kind of select your primary color that might reflect your organization's brand or the tone of your story. And then we'll also be making some more enhancements to the publishing and sharing process. And then we're going to have our first official general availability release in July, where we'll be adding things like usage statistics, a health checker. You'll be able to preview your story on multiple devices, and then everything that comes along with being a full ArcGIS app, like localization and internationalization and all the supported languages for ArcGIS Online as well. And then after that, of course, more block types, more layouts, more features, more things that you can do in classic apps, and also more new features that we'll be adding for the first time in StoryMap. So we've got lots and lots planned, and we're really excited about where we're going with this. So this is just a taste of what we've got coming in the coming months, and then we've got a lot more planned for later this year and next year. So what's the transition plan? Right now we have this suite of apps that are out there. We want everyone to know that we know that people are making lots of great stories with these all the time. These are not going away, right? When we release this new next generation application in July, all those other current templates will still be around. You'll still be able to make stories with those. So if you're currently planning projects or currently working with all those templates or have stories published, nothing's going to happen to those. They're not going to break. They're not going to stop working. They're not going away. You'll still be able to edit them. You'll still be able to create new stories. So we're thinking for a period of about a year that will be the case, right? There'll be no changes to the classic apps. You'll still be able to use them like you're using them today. And then after that, we'll start looking at moving them into the Esri product lifecycle and into things like extended support and mature support. And once we feel comfortable that we've got lots of the features from our classic apps into the next generation, that's when we'll begin that process. So we'll be reevaluating that as we go down the road. So we're happy to answer any additional questions that you might have about the content we presented today, or anything you've got about the next generation of story maps. And please don't forget to fill out the survey. These are really useful for us to understand how you're enjoying the content and if we're meeting your needs in terms of what we're presenting here at Dev Summit.
I also just want to add again that the beta is coming in early April, and we really, really want to build this product with you, not just for you. And so if you have any particular suggestions or feedback on what we have now, we encourage you to sign up for that beta. You can go to our website and sign up for the Planet StoryMaps newsletter, and that'll notify you once that beta is available. We really want this to be sort of an interactive process as we continue to flesh out all the capabilities of StoryMaps. So yeah, if you do have strong feelings, we invite you to participate in the beta program and look forward to hearing your thoughts. Any questions?
I saw a beta builder yesterday, next generation experience builder, and I see some overlap there. Can you say something about it? And also, is there any space for developers in this new generation, next generation story maps?
Sure. So one of the questions was, what's the developer story for the next generation story maps? And if were you at the last session as well? So we're going, with the developer story, we're going to follow a similar pattern there. So you'll be able to go to GitHub or go to our website and download the application, and then you'll get the code and you'll be able to put in custom scripts. You'll be able to modify the index.html, put in custom CSS to modify that story map. And then in terms of Experience Builder, there's lots of projects going on at Esri. Might have a little overlap here and there. So we're clearly focused on storytelling and helping you build the types of stories that we've always enabled you to build with our classic templates, and then moving that out into new types of stories. So that's our focus, whereas Experience Builder might be focused a little more on the GIS side or on collecting content together. So.
I think one more note about the developer story as well. We've seen that a lot of folks are downloading and self-hosting their own story maps for a few very specific reasons. They want analytics, they want a custom URL, they want to make some cosmetic changes to the story. And we recognize that these are things that folks want, and so we're looking at ways that we can actually integrate some of these capabilities directly into the builder, either through maybe some advanced options or through some sort of administrative setup. So potentially you won't actually have to download and self-host the story and maintain it yourself if you want some of those additional features. So if that's one of the reasons that you're downloading and customizing your stories, let us know, and we'll sort of prioritize some of those additional options.
Yes.
Is there any consideration for a way to export story maps so that we can label the customer we use them for monthly reports? So even if it's just simply printed in PDF, of course it never quite comes out with the way that we design it, or even to go all the way to the other end extreme, package up an entire story map with everything inside of it and hand that off.
So the question was about exporting a story map or leaving it behind with a customer or someone you're working with. So we're definitely looking into this. So right now, some of our story map templates support printing to PDF if you want. So that's one way to sort of do that, and we'll certainly look at bringing that feature into our next generation after we get past our general availability release in July. We're also looking at offline story maps as well. So we're looking into having a mobile app where you could connect to a story and pull all that information down. So that would obviously be a runtime thing if you wanted all of the map data to be available as well. So that's the route we're looking for that. Yes?
So I mentioned a bit of a player out here from say that the Express Maps speed and performance is awesome, so relevant that. But if you really future plans to have Express, well, first of all, that Express Map is only available with one story map at the moment. Is that right? And you can't sort of be like, you know, a story map here, moving my Express Map for any story map. So is there any potential for that? And then further on that, also have these Express Maps just to really generate pages. Because at the moment, we're really getting that 3 bars for 3 5 seconds. Express Maps don't have that. Great to build those sort of sprint wider.
Yep. Yeah, so the question was about Express Maps. Right now, Express Maps are only available in the story you create them in. So that's sort of where we wanted to start. And we certainly sort of anticipated that people might want to move them between stories. So we're not building that in from the very beginning, but we're certainly taking a look at that, and we're listening to kind of feedback like that. So there's certainly, we've considered that, so we can certainly build something like that in the future if there is a need for that. And in terms of performance, yeah, the performance of web maps is definitely, for Express Maps, is definitely much faster because they're much more lightweight. We're also looking at ways to improve the performance of the story in general in terms of mapping. So we didn't talk about this in the presentation, but we're adopting a concept of having screenshots for every piece of content in your story. And when your story loads, we might not even load your live web maps right away. We might just show you a screenshot of that web map, a nice one that makes it look like a map, not just a blurred out one, but a real screenshot of that map. And then when the reader starts to interact with that, then we can load the map in the background. So there's other things that we're considering in terms of improving the perceived performance of the reader, so where we don't have to load things right away, or we load things progressively as people want to interact with them. So that's another way we're looking to improve the overall performance as well.
And for those fully interactive web maps, we're also loading them using the 4.x API instead of the 3.x API. So both you as an author and your readers will have the sort of performance benefits of the newer technology, things like automatic feature simplification or generalization, and I think just overall better performance.
Yeah, faster rendering.
Yep.
Yes. Sorry.
Was the question about whether the Express Maps, whether you can add widgets to Express Maps? I don't think that's currently in our product plan. The way we're kind of considering Express Maps is not a replacement for or an alternative to web maps or the web app builder, but rather sort of a complement to them with a very sort of focused, limited set of capabilities. Depending on how we see people using Express Maps or whether people are asking for more complex widgets or maybe thematic renderers, I think we'll look at implementing some of those additional features. But for this sort of first pass, I think it's going to stick with just sort of the limited drawing tools that we have available now.
Yeah, one more? Oh, sure. So, of course, that's subject to change, but that's our plan. All right, great. If there's no more questions, oh, one more question? Yeah, did you say fonts too, or? Yes. So certainly images. Images you can upload today. We have that capability in our classic templates, and that already is available today. So if you want to upload an image to your story, it's stored with the story. We manage the permissions for you. We optimize it in terms of display, whether it's on a desktop or mobile. So that's all there today. Fonts are tricky because there's some security concerns with allowing people to upload their own fonts or point to them somewhere else on the web. So we are looking at that to figure out what we can do there. That may be something that you have to download and host yourself to add your own fonts, but we can build hooks in there to make that process easier. So we're still evaluating what we can do there, but we are looking at it. I think they make the presentations available online for Dev Summit, yeah. So they haven't done that yet, but they do it after the conference usually. Yep. Yep. One more? Yeah, basically any change you make to the story, whether it's changing the theme, adding a feature to the Express Map, any change you make will trigger that unpublished changes, and so those will be only private until you choose to republish them. All right, great. Thanks everyone for coming. We appreciate your attention, and feel free to stop by and see us over in the online island if you have any more questions.
Thank you.